Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Masterclass for Yoga for Grief and Loss, Day 1. This class is called Creating Space for Awareness and can be found in the class formats in the back of the book. As we've talked about, this first day, we're really focusing on creating that connection of awareness, our breath and our body, our mind, really tuning into what we are feeling and doing our best to bring ourselves into this present moment. And this present moment is really where we're able to support ourselves in the best way and offer support to our students and clients in the best way. This particular class is a journey through the Koshas. So we'll start with our physical body and work our way through all 5 of the layers. And I'll talk just a tiny bit about each one as we go. And so with that, let's go ahead and get started. We will begin our practice today supine. So let's go ahead and lay down on the mat. And of course, we can choose to have our legs stretched out or our knees bent, whatever feels the best. And as we get ourselves settled here on the mat, let's simply begin to notice where our body meets the mat. We may be able to feel where our head is touching, our shoulders. Let's also feel where our arms are resting on the mat. Feeling the muscles along the sides of our back touching the floor. Our hips. And either our legs or our feet, or both. So we're fully aware of all of the places where our body is resting and being supported by the mat and floor beneath us. Let's begin to feel the rise and fall of our breath. Let's allow our breath to continue on its own. And let's stretch one leg out on the mat and have the other leg, our knee, pulled toward our chest. And feeling into that gentle stretch, noticing the sensation of the stretch. And then switching to the other side. And now let's alternate knees to chest. And as we alternate from one side to the other, let's notice where we feel the sensations. Do we notice it in our hip crease or in the back of our hips? Do we feel more aware of the effort of our arms and hands? And then bringing both knees toward our chest, let's offer a gentle rock from side to side and feeling the sensations in our low back, our hips, our shoulders as we rock side to side. And bringing that back to the center, let's release our feet to the mat, arms resting by our sides as we begin to flow through bridge poses. Inhaling as we lift our hips away from the floor and exhaling as we release down. Now let's continue to flow through this bridge pose, once again noticing the sensations. We may keep these first bridge poses or all of them a little smaller. Perhaps sensation greets us pretty early in the lift. As we continue to move, Let's notice the effort of our body pressing down into the mat to support the lift of our hips. And then noticing any sensations available in the shoulders and the chest as we press down through the backs of our arms and shoulder blades and lift through our sternum. Let's take one more round of breath here. And as we have our hips resting on the mat again, let's once again feel the sensations where our body meets the mat and the floor. Now, gently rolling to our side, let's press up to a seated position. We can choose to have legs crossed for an easy seat. We may choose to stretch our legs out in front. Whichever we choose is fine. We want to find comfort here in our seated posture. Now let's begin with a little neck and shoulder work. Allowing the tension we find here to release gently with movement. We'll be drawing shoulders up and relaxing them back and down. And as we move through this, let's notice how the shoulders respond. Then let's also notice if we find movement with our hands on our legs or on the floor, and noticing those sensations as well. And letting our shoulders relax down away from our ears. Let's place our hands beside us and press toward the floor as we lift tall through our body. And let's add a nod of our chin toward our chest and then lifting upward toward the ceiling. Let's go back and forth here a few times. Each time we tuck our chin toward our chest, let's allow the muscles in the back of our neck to relax. And each time we lift our chin up toward the ceiling, let's feel the muscles in the front of the neck stretch. We've probably already made the connection that we're nodding our head yes here. Well, let's imagine that yes as a supportive yes, I am doing something to move my body, to connect my body and my breath and my mind. And then bringing our head back to a neutral position. Now let's bring our hands to the tops of our shoulders. We have our elbows lifted out to the side. Our body is nice and tall. And from here, let's begin to gently twist from side to side, a torso twist. And as we move ourselves from side to side, let's notice the sensations we feel in the muscles of the waist, the muscles alongside the spine. Perhaps we notice sensation in the muscles of the chest. And here, as we turn from side to side, twisting, we recognize the twists and turns of life. Sometimes taking us one way and sometimes taking us the other. We'll do a few more here, allowing these muscles to really warm into the movement. And then bringing it back around to the center again. Relaxing arms beside us. Let's give our arms a little shake. Get that arm to relax as we sit tall again. Okay, let's turn over now onto all fours. If we like, of course, we can place additional cushioning under the knees for support. We may choose to have palms or fists underneath our shoulders as we start to move through some cat-cows. And here, as we move through our cat-cows, of course, we feel a flexing and extending in our spine. But one of the things I love about this posture is it creates a beautiful balance between an inward focus in cat pose and an outward focus in cow. And so as we move from one to the other, let's feel ourselves tucking inward. And then as we lift into cow, let's feel ourselves lifting and opening ourselves outward. And a few more rounds here, flowing between cat and cow. Let's take one more breath here. And then as we return to all fours, let's feel ourselves pressing down through our arms and our legs into the mat and feeling that energy rise up into the center of our being. And then allowing the arms and legs to relax. Let's do that again, pressing down, feeling the energy rise up into the center. And releasing. And one more time, pressing down, feeling the core energy hug in. Let's maintain that lift as we reach into a spinal balance, pressing one heel back and reaching the opposite fingertips forward. Let's add in a sunbird flow here, drawing elbow and knee together and reaching out again. And let's do a couple more of those. Feeling ourselves draw our spine into a C shape, curling it in, and then extending and reaching it out. Last one on this side. And letting it come back to all fours. Let's re-engage, pressing down through the arms and legs, feeling that energy drop through the center. And now reaching into spinal balance, pressing the other leg back. Opposite fingertips reaching forward. Bringing movement in as we draw elbow and knee toward each other and reaching out. Feeling the body curl in and then extend. And then bringing it back to hands and knees, all fours posture again. Let's press ourselves back into a child's pose. Resting our hips back toward our heels, our forehead resting. Let's bring our forehead to rest on our hands. As we pause here, let's feel our breath reaching out through the body. Let's feel that connection of our forehead to our hands. And now, actively reaching forward through our arms, extending our elbows, spreading our fingers out wide. Let's feel the texture of the mat beneath our hands. Let's feel the stretch in our body as our arms reach forward. And now tucking our toes, let's lift our hips up and back for down dog. Taking some time here to pedal it out and feeling that opening in the backs of the knees, the release along the backs of the legs. You may notice the texture of the mat under our feet as we pedal. And now let's press up onto the balls of both feet, feeling that stretch at the base of the toes and along the arches of the feet. And now let's step up to the top of our mat. Coming into forward fold. Let's allow our body to rest over our legs, a nice soft bend in our knees. Let's let our head hang down toward the floor and give a little nod of our head yes. And letting it relax. Bringing fingertips to opposite elbows. Let's give a little shift from side to side. And then bringing it back to the center, releasing our hands. Let's inhale for a half lift, a monkey pose. Shifting forward and back in our feet here. Once again, feeling the texture of the mat beneath our feet. And then finding the middle where we feel even between the front and back of the feet. Let's actively press down through our legs as we lift through our hips, feeling a deeper stretch along the backs. Now inhaling to lift our heart a little higher so we feel extension in our spine. Let's hug our core muscles in as we reach arms back with palms down, drawing shoulder blades toward each other on the back for airplane posture. Feeling the strength and energy running through this pose. Sweeping our arms forward into chair as we settle our hips back. Feel the strength of our legs holding us in this posture. Let's feel our shoulders relaxing away from our ears. And pressing to the top and overhead. Let's release arms down by our sides in this mountain pose. Pausing here for a moment to feel what our body feels here. Noticing the sensations beneath our feet. What it feels like to stand up on our 2 feet. Our postural muscles keeping us nice and tall. We'll begin our transition now to our Pranamaya Kosha, our energetic body. And as we begin this focus, let's bring our hands overhead with an inhale and reaching them out wide to the sides as we exhale. Feeling the connection of our breath and movement together. Inhaling, reaching. Exhaling, releasing arms out to the sides. What sensations do we notice in our shoulders, in our arms? How do we feel the breath expanding through our rib cage? Now let's take one more. Letting our arms relax. Let's turn to face the long edge of the mat and take a wide stance. Toes are wide, knees are wide. Let's reach up into a 5-point star and bending deeply into our knees as we hug our elbows in toward our sides. Inhaling as we reach and exhaling as we draw everything downward. Let's tune into the sensation of our back participating by drawing our shoulder blades together in a V as our elbows hug in. Drawing sensation awareness to our hips as we bend down and we feel our glutes open, our knees out wide to the sides. On this next reach, let's turn it into sunflowers with a big circle and a deeper hinge at the hips. Let's feel that sensation of the hips bending a little deeper. We may notice more in the inner thigh or a little more in the back of the hips. Let's allow our focus to be on the strong press and lift up. A nice strong inhale as we complete that pressing and reaching. And one more. And letting arms relax down by our sides. Let's face the front of the mat again and step up to the top. Inhaling, let's reach our arms overhead and feel our breath expanding through our body. Now swan diving, let's take it into a forward fold and allow the legs to lengthen, the back to relax. Let's step our right foot to the back of the mat into a lunge. As we find this lunge, let's feel the energy reaching down through the hips and up and forward through the chest. Now stepping all the way back to downward facing dog. Feeling our hands press forward as our heels release back. Our hips peaking at the top. And now pulling forward into a plank pose. Let's release our knees to the mat and feel ourselves pressing the mat away, hugging our core muscles into the center. Shifting, let's hug our elbows in as we lower for crocodile. And then relaxing all the way to the mat. Feeling our head and chest up for cobra, feeling that strong opening of the front. And releasing down. Let's return to our kneeling plank. And tucking our toes, return to our down dog. Stepping our right foot all the way to the top into lunge. Let's once again feel that deep release in the hips as our heart reaches forward. Pressing it up into a forward fold. Reaching wide and overhead, extended mountain. Feeling the body lifted and open here. And circling as we sit in the chair. And returning to mountain. Let's swan dive and fold it in. Feeling our body rest over our legs. Left foot stepping back into our lunge. As we allow our hips to release and our chest lift, let's also lift through our back knee. Pressing up high on the ball of our back foot. Such strength and energy pressing through the body. And now sending back to downward facing dog. Feeling our spine lengthen here. Our chest relaxing back toward our toes. Coming forward into our plank pose. Let's linger here for a moment. We can have knees up or down. And then let's all release knees down as we shift and lower for our crocodile. Relaxing all the way to the mat as we peel head and chest up for cobra, feeling that lift through the spine, our shoulders reaching back away from our ears. Lots of strength pulling through the body. And releasing. Returning to our kneeling plank. Tucking our toes and sending it back to down dog. Left foot stepping all the way to the top of the mat. Feeling our hips release down, our chest lifting forward. Our back knee lifting and pressing up high onto the ball of the back foot. Feeling that strength lift us in the posture. Pressing up to forward fold. Let's reach wide as we press up and overhead. Circling as we sit into our chair posture. Feeling the strength of our hips, our legs, the lift in our body, the softness in our eyes. And returning to the top, reaching overhead. Drawing hands through our heart center here. Let's inhale, reaching overhead, and exhale, hands right through to the center of our body. And let's do a few more of these, reaching, drawing hands together and feeling that connection once again of breath and movement together. On the next one, let's pause with our hands at our heart center and simply feel the energy running through our bodies. Feeling it expand through with each inhale and relaxing with each exhale. Now let's change our mental focus and notice in our Manomaya Kosha, our emotional body, do we have any opinions right now? Or perhaps notice any emotions creeping in? Do you find that you're enjoying the practice or you find it irritating? Do you feel an unexplainable happiness, sadness, laughter, or anger? As we continue to flow our postures, let's take our awareness to our emotional experience now. From the top of our mat, let's step our left foot back into a warrior one posture. Back heel resting down, finding that nice stable place in our body, feeling the stretch of the posture. And then let's step it up again. All right, so from here, let's change the arms and create our arms or our forearms stack one on top of the other. And as we step back, let's pull our arms out to the sides. And stepping up to the front again. Now let's switch to the other leg, stepping our right foot back and pulling those elbows open and to the front. And we'll go back and forth in this way. This posture or flow is called breaking the chains. And so you can imagine here that our arms are breaking out of the chains as we move. And let's make this a little more fun and add a vocalization here. Let's give it a nice ha. Step forward and ha. And forward. And let's keep that going, giving a nice big ha every time we break the chains open. Ha. Ha. And as we continue, let's think of or bring to mind some chains that we feel like we need to break through, something that's holding us back. Let's give it a few more here. Ha, 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 ha. Last one. Ha. And bring it to the top and let it relax and let those arms shake out. All right. Next up, we have a windmill breath. That energy that we just got moving, breaking open those chains. Let's see if we can clear some of that out. As we inhale, we'll reach our arms overhead. And as we exhale, we'll sweep them back behind us. And this can be nice and big. It can be a nice big sigh out the mouth with the exhale. And let's do several of these. Let's do one more. And let it go. All right, let's notice if our emotion has changed or our opinion has changed from a couple of postures ago on our last check-in. Do we feel more irritated, more angry? Do we feel like a clearer space is in our head? Do we feel lighter? Or do we simply feel more energy or something else? Just notice what you feel here. All right, we'll come to the top of our mat if we were anywhere else. And let's step our left foot back into a big stance for a warrior two. A nice big reach back, finding that warrior two posture. And here, let's keep the legs the same, but flow the arms overhead and down to the sides. This is a star warrior flow. And as we flow the arms here, again, let's tap into any emotions or opinions we experience. We can even play around with where our gaze is. If we keep it over those front fingertips, does that somehow feel different than looking straight in front of our body? All right, the next time we reach arms overhead, let's leave them there and pivot so that we're facing the side of the mat with our toes pointing out and reach into a 5-point star. And here, let's feel the energy actively reaching, pressing through the feet, the toes, lifting through the body, reaching through the arms, the hands, the fingertips. Let's notice this feeling of reaching, that it requires a pressing down to reach up. And now let's bring those arms overhead and pivot to face the back of the mat, coming into our warrior two. And let's flow those arms a few times on this side. We've had our arms engaged overhead and out to the sides for a while now, so we may start to really be developing an opinion. Maybe you're getting a little irritated with this posture, with this flow. Just notice what that irritation feels like. Does it want to turn into anger? Does recognizing it make you smile and chuckle about the irritation? Last one. And on the reach, let's leave our arms overhead. Let's pivot to face the side and reach into our 5-point star again. Let's keep the same idea here, but bring our hands to our hips. Still pressing strong through the legs and the feet, lifting and reaching through the body, but a little bit of relief for the arms and the shoulders. And notice, does this change our opinion? All right, let's face the front again and step up to the top of the mat and shake it all out. All right, another breathing technique, and this one requires a little bit of movement. So depending on the space available, you may be able to walk all through a bigger room, or if your space is more limited, as mine is, you may choose to simply walk back and forth on the mat. Where you're going doesn't really matter, but we do need at least a mat's length of space to be able to move with this breath. And this breath is called clearing the path. So we've already broken through the chains. We've established that reaching determined energy, and now we're ready to clear the path. So let's imagine the obstacles that are in our way. And those obstacles are tall prairie grasses. They're like this high, and we've got to get through them. And so let's take a machete in each hand. And as we clear our path, we get to bring back our vocalizations again, and we can just take a cut through that prairie grass. Ha, 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 ha. Really imagine yourself trying to get through those grasses to the clearing where you want to be. Ha, 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 ha. Let's do a couple more. Ha, 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 ha. Last one. Ha. Oh, let it go. All right, the path is cleared. We are there in the clearing, and we feel a sense of accomplishment. But we may also still have some of that anger and upset welling up inside. We've gotten the energy moving and it's ready to come out. So here in this clearing, we become a volcano. Let's take a nice wide stance, and we'll inhale, arms up through the center, and let them explode out to the sides. It wells up right through the center of our being and out to the sides. It can be even louder if you want. Ah! Whatever noise comes out is the one that comes out. Those emotions reaching up, rising up, bubbling out, and ah! 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 Let's do a couple more. Ah! Ah! Last one. Ah! Check it out. And as we're ready, let's come back to a mountain. And notice how it feels inside. You may notice sensation in our heart, in our belly, in our head, in our eyes. It could be anywhere. Those emotions having been acknowledged and given an opportunity to be expressed in a variety of ways. Through some cleansing breathing practices. And here in our mountain pose, let's cross our arms one over the other, or we may prefer to have our hands crossed at our chest. We're going to do some little alternating taps. So either at the chest or on the arms, whichever you like. And these love taps are taps of appreciation, of love, of acknowledgement. Here we can say back to ourselves, I see you. I hear you. I understand you're feeling blank. I acknowledge our experience. I love you. I appreciate you. I support you. I honor you. As we begin to feel that we have acknowledged ourselves, you may feel ready to let the taps settle into either a hug or a heartfelt touch. And then when we're ready, we can release our hands. Our next posture is a little bit of a balancing posture, but it's also moving. And it's called the pendulum. And so what we'll do is put our effort in one leg and start to swing the other leg forward and back. If we like, we can put our hand on the wall or we can hold on to a chair. It's not necessarily about being able to maintain our balance, but feeling how this pendulum swing affects our sense of balance. And at first, it feels very unstable, perhaps. I'm not sure what to do or how to respond. And as we continue to swing that leg forward and back, we may notice we have to put a toe down here and there. We'll just come back to it. But over time, we may notice that that starts to settle in to a new rhythm. Maybe we notice our arms start to support by swinging too. And what felt very strange and foreign at first does begin to settle into something that feels a little more familiar. Doesn't mean that we might not pause or shift or even need to rest at some point. We recognize that we're able to find a new sense of balance or of equilibrium here. Now let's let that foot come down. Let's shift to the other side and start that pendulum on the other leg. And just noticing, does it feel more stable, less stable? Does it fall into rhythm a little faster? Does it require as many toe taps down or pauses? None of those choices or experiences are good or bad. They simply are. Sometimes we need a little touch point or a moment of rest as we learn to be in a new place of balance and equilibrium, a place that feels less stable. And then let's allow that to come to a stop. Coming back to our mountain pose. And here in our mountain pose, this is a very familiar posture to us. We do this posture a lot of times, even off of the yoga mat, many, many, many times every day. So we rarely think about this as a balancing posture. However, there was a time many years ago when we could not stand on our own 2 feet. We didn't have the balance for it yet, but we do now. And so here we are standing on our own 2 feet on our yoga mat. We can choose to leave arms by our sides, or if we like to place them together in front of our heart center, we can do that as well. But let's simply notice what it feels like to balance here. To tap into that sensation, we may want to bring a little bit of movement. Maybe we shift forward and back a few times, feeling the energy shift from our heels to the balls of our feet. We may choose to move a little bit side to side. As we come back to the center again, maybe we choose to close our eyes and feel what it feels like to stand here rather than relying on what it looks like to stand here. And letting our arms relax beside us. Let's reach our arms overhead, swan diving as we fold it in. Let's bring our hands to the mat and return to all fours. And here in all fours, we can place support under our knees again if we like. We can choose palms or fists. Now let's come back to our cat-cows. And then returning to a neutral spine. Let's rest onto one hip and bring our legs around to the front for butterfly posture. We'll adjust as needed so we feel our sitting bones as our foundation. We may choose to put a blanket underneath our hips. As we bring the soles of our feet together, we feel our body lifting tall. We're making our way now into the Annamaya Kosha, our bliss body. And that term may seem a little off for this moment. What I'd like to suggest in its stead is a present moment awareness body. Because truly that's what our bliss body is anyway. And so as we change the term for it, a present moment awareness body, this feels a little more appropriate for our time together. And it is important that we come here because surrendering to the present moment is really and truly our only way through. So as we come together here in our butterfly posture, feeling into this present moment and what is, let's begin to shift a little from side to side. Noticing what is in our hips. Noticing any tension we feel here, any relaxation in the muscles we feel here. And rather than assigning those sensations as good or bad, let's simply note them as this is what is. This is what I feel. This is the posture I'm in. And now let's begin to shift forward and back. And the same thing here as we begin to notice new sensations available. Let's refrain from saying, oh, I'm always so tight there. Or, oh my gosh, this is my favorite pose. I wish I could just hold it. And simply notice what is. What is could be an opinion. I don't like this, or I do like this. It can also be more basic than that. I feel a stretch. I feel tension. Maybe I feel the temperature of the floor beneath me. And then let's bring it back to the top again. Our next posture is a hip stretch, and I'd like to offer the option to do either a pigeon pose or a supine figure 4. So let's make our way into whichever one seems right for today and for this moment. I'm going to choose the supine figure 4, but I'll show the pigeon pose first. So the pigeon pose has one leg bent out to the side in the front, with the knee as wide as our hip points or wider, and the other leg reaching back. Our body can stay tall, or we can come down to forearms, or rest with our forehead on our hands. If we're choosing the supine figure 4, we'll come to our backs. And we can cross right ankle over left knee, or if we've already done the other side, that's okay, we'll do both. And we can allow ourselves to rest just like this. If we find we'd like more sensation, we can fold that left knee toward our body with the option to hold our hands behind our leg or leave them on the mat. So as we find our hip stretch, bringing our attention to this present moment again, taking note of the physical sensation of any emotional response, recognizing that this activity in and of itself is in our mental body, Annamaya Kosha. We may feel that the energy in our body has settled down, the Pranamaya Kosha. But here we are in this very moment, being aware we're in this very moment, Annamaya Kosha. Let's take another breath or two here. And then letting that relax. Let's switch to the other side. So swinging the legs around for pigeon, or if you prefer, coming through a down dog to the other side. Or if we're in the supine figure 4, simply switching the legs. And as we come into the posture on this side, releasing any expectation for them to feel the same. This side may feel very different. And so let's notice what is. Where do we feel sensation or tension or release? Where do we feel temperature? Do we have any opinions or emotional responses? Perhaps getting into these deeper hip stretches, we begin to feel sad or happy, giggly or tearful, or angry. And now letting this side go. Allowing our feet to rest on the mat with our knees pointing upward in constructive rest posture. Feeling how our body feels as it rests here. And then for a variation on legs up the wall, we can place our hands under our hips and lift our legs up. Or if you are close to a wall and prefer to move over to it, please feel free to do so. And as we come into this legs up the wall posture, let's keep our mind right here, right now. And do some circles with our feet and ankles. And then circling the other way. And now pointing and flexing our feet, noticing how that feels in the calves and the shins. And letting our feet and ankles relax, let's bring our awareness to the effort of our body resting down into our hands. Releasing our feet back to the mat, letting our hands rest over to the sides. Let's once again feel the rise and fall of our breath. And let's notice the sounds that we hear. And let's notice what our eyes can see. Wherever our hands are resting, let's feel what our hands can feel. Perhaps the texture of the mat or the softness of our clothing, or the coolness of the floor outside the mat. And now, using our imagination, let's think of our favorite fruit and imagine the taste of that fruit. Now let's bring some gentle movements to our body again. We may start by scrunching our fingers together and flinging them out, or scrunching our toes and releasing them. We can start to make those movements a little bigger, reaching and moving through the body. Let's feel our breath deepen again. And then as we feel ready, let's roll over onto our side and find our way up to a seated position again. Here in our seat, let's bring our hands to our heart center. Taking a moment to acknowledge our investment here in our wellness, in our practice, in supporting ourselves, and learning how to support others in a better way. Let's offer gratitude for our amazing community where we can come together and share the practice. And thank you so much for sharing this time with me. Namaste.